This conference will now be recorded.
You have a quorum.
Okay, we're all here today. Thank you. We have the agenda for the January 27th meeting. Could I have an approval of the agenda, please?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the agendas presented with the one change. Management has requested, administration has requested us to pull number 3 for further discussion in departments. So the withdrawal of 3 from the agenda. Everything else stands, including the addendum, which is ordinance 22, which amends Article 52 of the zoning ordinance.
And
The meet and hunt air service as well, development consulting.
okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda with the deletion of the planning and zoning fees resolution, which is number 3, and on the addendum, the addition of number 5 and number 6. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, then all those in favor of approval of the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Now we have the minutes from our last regular meeting, which was Thursday, December 16th of 2021. Bless you. Are there any corrections or comments or changes?
None from me.
Okay. Hearing none, then they'll stand approved as written. We have a lot of guests here today, so I wonder if we could quickly kind of go around the room and introduce ourselves, just so we all know who is here. Mike, do you mind starting?
My nephew's deputy city manager. Joe Neff, city manager.
Lisa Brumlatt, local government.
Josh Hanningham, deputy city attorney. Scott Stark, Air Center director. Steve Christopher, deputy director there, sir.
CJ Conyers, Public Affairs Admin.
Peggy Sesky, Main Street, Roswell.
Tim Wood, Main Street, Roswell, treasurer.
Molly Boyles, Main Street, Roswell, vice president.
Jessica Collier, Contract Administrator.
Bruce Maxwell, AVEX Aerospace. Bob Ivy, AVEX Aerospace, is the director here in Roswell.
Thank you. And then Barry, why don't you go ahead?
Barry Foster, City Council, Ward 5.
Daniel Lopez, City Council, Ward 4.
Jenna Lansford, property manager, Air Center.
Juanita Jennings, public affairs.
Kevin Mavers, Community Development Director.
Amalia Martinez, legal department.
And I'm Judy Stubbs, Counselor Ward 3, and I'm chair of this committee.
Jason Perry, I'm a has-been. So.
Well, if you want to be.
Do we know who is online?
I was just going to ask do we know if anyone's online? It looks, Rita Kane Dorhofer. Hi, Rita. Okay, so let's go ahead to our regular items. We have 4 airport leases. Is that yours, Jen?
Yep.
Okay, the first is the Ascent Aviation Services.
Yes, this is a renewal for their last year's lease coming in for Building 100. They're using this building for ground servicing equipment, maintenance and storage, footprint of 5,250 square feet. We're moving them to a 5-year lease since they're planning on being with us long term. We've brought them up to CPI and have increased the rent from $19,200 annually to $23,570.40 annually, with an increase of a monthly from $1,600 to $1,964.20. So they will be with us with this lease from March 1, 2022 through February 2027.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? From anyone else? Could I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to place on the March or February, yeah. February.
It goes too fast.
It's going too fast. February consent agenda for the city council and recommending for approval to authorize Ascent Aviation Services Corp. To enter into a lease for building 100 for the annual rate of $23,570.40, payable in 12 monthly installments of $1,964.20, with all other terms and conditions of the lease.
A second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to place on consent agenda the renewal of the Ascent Aviation Services building, lease of building 100. Any further discussion or comments? If you'll notice, and I appreciate this, Jenna, that we only need the front page of each one of these leases unless there's something different than the rest of them. So I appreciate that. And the exhibit is in the packet. So if
May I ask one question?
please, yes.
I'm sorry, the lease term is for 5 years. The all urban consumer or 3%, whichever is greater, does that take place on a yearly basis or is that waived? I'm trying to understand.
Yes, it's yearly.
It is on a year. Okay, just making sure.
Paragraph 3 here says.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of placing this on the consent agenda for the February City Council meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. Ascent Aviation, Jenna?
This is a land lease that's new. They have an interim going right now, and we're entering them into the AOA land area, 9,500 square feet, for a 1-year lease starting March 1st, 2022 through February 28th, 2023, with a rate of $11,400 annually and $950 monthly.
Okay. Any questions? We get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I make a motion we place on the consent agenda of the February City Council meeting, recommendation to approve the new lease agreement with Ascent Aviation Services for vacant lot west of building number 1002, consisting of 9,500 square feet of vacant land. Exhibit A on there in the amount of $11,400 and no cents, payable in 12 monthly installments of $950, subject to all other terms and conditions of the lease.
Okay. A second? Thank you, Councilor Foster.
Is that on the consent? I'm sorry.
Yes, yes, thank you. Okay, any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of placing the Ascent Services contract on the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next, we have the Avis rent-a-car system, or known as, oh no, that's the one that is known as Avis. Okay.
This is for Avis Rent-A-Car System, and they also do businesses budget rent-a-car. So that's probably where you were seeing that.
Thank you.
I'm bringing them up into a new 5-year lease with a step up of coming from 7.5% combined monthly gross revenue, time and mileage charges, or whichever is greater. So they have a minimum base rent and or the percentage of sales. So we're going to start them this first year at 8%, which is 0.5% higher than they were before. Year 2, they'll go into 9%, and years 3 through 5 will get them up to current market, which is 10% commission at most air center rental car establishments.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes, no, go ahead.
What is the difference between CPI and CPIU?
It's the same thing. It's just a different language. So it's still urban.
There are a lot of CPIs.
Yeah, there are, and
So this
that's
is
why I wondered.
Urban.
Yep.
And that's the standard one that we're using.
Correct. It's overall.
Right. So, good. Good question. Any other questions or comments?
I have just one.
Sure.
How long have they been renting from us? And why aren't they up to
They've been bumped up, but since they were in a 5-year lease with us, they were kind of locked into that time frame, and so that's getting them now. It was at the time of the lease, the current value.
Thank you, ma'am.
And it was April 2008.
It was 8.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
We're completely full out there with our booths, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it was probably 2011, 2012, we did a significant bump up from where it was, and then we've been able to move from there, so that's good. I'm just making sure we were still full. All right.
And Madam Chair,
Yes, sir. Councilor.
since this is Avis and budget, are the requirements that we used to, that they had to have both their areas staffed? Because it wasn't at one point we had one that rented out the space and just left it, just to leave it blank so that no one else could come in.
No, they're completely staffed,
All right,
and we've not had any staffing issues. Enterprise does have a shared, location, but they're always there for flight arrivals. So they're there.
I couldn't remember about that one. They
Yeah.
had the 2 booths and they
Right.
were keeping one empty just to keep somebody else from coming in.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, could I get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to send to the consent agenda of the March City Council considering and recommending approval to authorize Avis Rent a Car System LLC to enter into a lease consisting of counter space, office space, parking space, and an area of land.
Thank
For
you.
a 5-year deal with yearly bumps from 8.
You want deal in your
What?
motion? You want a 5-year deal in your,
Well, a 5-year
please.
lease.
Thank you.
It is
It is a deal.
a deal. So, but anyway, to raise the increment of percentage from 8 to eventually 10% with all of the terms and conditions of the lease.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Good. Any other further comments or questions, concerns? I guess, I don't think we talked about the fact that we've got the rent or the percent. It's one or the other, which I think is important to note. Yeah, it's one or the other. Okay. Hearing no other comments, all those in favor of sending the Avis Rent-A-Car lease, doing business as Budget Rent-A-Car to full council on the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda. Any opposed? Okay, it'll go on the consent agenda then with the unanimous recommendation. Okay, so Jen, anything else from you?
Bhutan. Release.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. I turned the page too quickly. Thank you, Bhutan, yes.
So this is the Hertz Rent-A-Car business. They are under the incorporation of Bhutan. They have been tenants with us since 1999. Their last lease was a 5-year lease, and we're upon renewal. We are doing the same thing with them as we did Avis by moving them up in increments from 8 to 9 to 10% through the first year 8, second year 9, third through 5, 10%. And this is also an or, so there's a minimum rent set for them as well. Their old lease was $11,256 annually. $12,671.28 is the new annual rate. $938 monthly was the old lease, and $1,055.94 for the sales of gross revenue. I apologize, time and mileage charges, whichever is greater.
Okay, and they also have a additional building or something, don't they?
They occupy space in building 240. Their square footprint is smaller.
Okay, that's, I guess, what I was looking at. Okay, thank you. Okay. Any questions or comments on this one?
Up here, Avis shows 109 square foot counter space. Don shows 120 square foot counter space.
They're not equally slotted,
They're not,
no.
because that's why I was trying to look at it, and it was like, because this is significantly less than what, but the other is actually for two, correct?
The other is for a counter space and office space. Hertz Bhutan is also counter space and office space. The significant difference is the land space that Avis occupies versus.
1,100.
Yeah.
4,000.
Yeah.
That's what, but to me, the interior spacing is more than the land spacing, but anyway.
They've got more vehicles because they have more land.
They're willing to enter the contract.
Yeah,
Yeah. You okay?
I'm okay.
All righty. Any other comments or questions? Could I have a motion then, please?
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we send to the consent agenda of the February regular meeting of the City Council, the recommendation to approve the lease agreement with Bhutan Incorporate, which is licensed doing business as Hertz, for the counter space consisting of 120 square feet, more or less, and the office space consisting of 126 square feet, more or less, in the permanent building. Hidden parking slots for rental cars, and an area of land consisting of 1,100 square feet, more or less, situated there at building number 1052, identified on Exhibit A, for a 5-year lease commencing on March the 1st of 22 and ending February 28th of 27th, in the amount of $12,671.28 annually, monthly of $1,055 or 8% of the monthly gross revenue, whichever is greater, to include also the 3% or CPI yearly, subject to all the terms and conditions of the lease.
Okay, with the escalation into the third
Yes.
to the fifth year.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, again, any further discussion, comments, or questions? Hearing none, then all those in favor of sending this to full council on the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, so now we'll move on to, this is so much paper. Item number 2, which is the Main Street Roswell service agreement for business retention, development, and recruitment services. Are you going to present it, Juanita?
Sure. So this is the agreement for Main Street Roswell, 2040 resolution support of Main Street Roswell for their comprehensive commercial district. It's sort of their 4-point approach, which we did pass in 2020. We will continue to provide financial assistance to accomplish economic development in the downtown district, and the city acts as a fiscal agent. If you'll go to the next slide. We have had a service agreement in place for several years. In 2019, all community collaborators worked on a new service agreement. They were all updated to consistently be clear on the defined scope of service and metrics, as well as reporting measures for the money that the city was dispersing to these entities, and making sure that the money is being held accountable to the taxpayers. This is a proposed contract which is similar to fiscal year 21, with clarification to the city's intellectual property and a renewed focus on business retention, economic development, and recruitment services for the downtown district. Contract negotiations have been ongoing since June of 2021. In this contract, the amount is $60,000 per year. The scope of work would come to 25% to fulfill the Main Street America's 4-point plan, 50% to be used for business retention and economic development, allocated for those efforts and 25% for recruitment services for business support. The metrics pretty much stayed the same as far as activities, profit and loss, financial reports. They did include a little bit more defined scope that was presented from Main Street to the city. And it also still includes the annual report to the city council. One additional change will be the report will now be provided to Mr. Mavers under the community development. And legal is asked to approve the scope of service agreement as it is written for fiscal year 22.
Thank you very much. Anything you wanted to say, Josh? Okay, thank you. We've had a different rendition or two presented to us, I think, since in this packet, and I'm not sure where to go from here. Joe, do you want to?
I would just say that I double checked, I verified that the copy in the packet is what we're talking about as written.
Okay.
There has been an ongoing discussion between the city and Main Street for various language changes. But some of that had already been addressed by our legal team.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure exactly where else to go either, other than the one that is written, we believe had met all the conditions of what we were trying to do.
So staff is presenting the agreement that's in the packet.
It is in the packet.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you for that clarification. There's several Main Street people here, and I guess that's what this is your proposal. Is there a spokesperson for Main Street?
That would be me.
That would be you. Hi, Molly. Okay, so you have made this presentation, but as we've said, what staff is presenting is what's currently in the packet. So would you like to speak to us and then we can?
Absolutely.
There, thank you.
Sure. There are several things that we had already requested changes on. I'm trying to find in your packet where those percentages are broken down. I don't know what page that's on. No, I need it from their packet. I need to know what page it's on in their packet.
It's on page 35 in the packet. It's
35. Okay, 35.
Exhibit C.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So that was not the last draft we had gotten. We had gotten 50% at Main Street's America's 4 points and 25% business retention and 25% recruitment. That's the last one that I had received. We have since made several changes. One of the things in that particular spot, it says on any renewal terms that 100% of the money will go towards business retention and development purposes. That goes against Main Street America's 4 points. So that would have to be removed. It would have to be, there has to be a percentage. There has to be a percentage that goes towards Main Street America's 4-point approach.
Right.
So that next sentence where it says that any renewals would be at 100% only to business retention and development purposes.
Madam Chair, what line are we on?
That's line number 19.
Thank you.
19.
It's sub number 4.
So what is the language that you're suggesting?
Fulfill Main Street Roswell's 4 points at 50%. Because most of those 4 points, Judy, as you know, and for those of you that have dealt with Main Street, understand many of those 4 points cover business retention. You know, much of it is still in that area. Both recruitment, business retention, economic development, beautification, all of those things are covered. So we are looking at 50% for Main Street America's 4 points. That's the name we carry. That's the contract that you guys even have with New Mexico Main Street and Main Street America. You guys have a contract with them stating that you'll support the 4 points. Supporting them at only 25% doesn't seem like that's the right fit for us. But that line 19, Whatever allocated funds are agreed upon in the above percentages must also be what is in future renewals. That makes sense? Does everybody understand why we require that?
Well, I understand why, but I don't, here it is in my hand. I'm trying to think, and you brought up the point of renewals. I wanted to talk about that too, but so please give me again the language you want in line 19, which is 4 of Exhibit C. In any renewal.
Any renewal term, the city will allocate funds as listed above. Whatever is agreed upon in lines 16, 17, and 18 will be what is agreed upon from there on out.
Oh, I see, as opposed to the solely for business retention and
Correct.
development.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That is not how I read this document. It's not.
Josh, would you stand up, please? Thank you
This
very
isn't
much.
exclusive. So, I mean, it just says that the city will allocate funds solely for business retention. It doesn't mean that it's not going to also allocate funds for the other, 4 points and recruitment services.
So do we just remove lines 14 through 20 and say that Main Street Roswell will do its work as guided by the Main Street America 4 points? Because 4 points does include business retention and development.
I guess I see no purpose in modifying the document because I think it's capturing the percentages of as I understand it.
So just remove.
What the percentages that the city wished to proceed with.
So just remove.
50 and 25.
So just remove in any renewal term, the city will allocate funds to be used solely for business retention and development purposes.
Yes, but the thing is that doesn't necessarily mean that all the funding in a renewal term can only be used for business retention.
Oh, it says to be used solely for. So I guess I don't understand legalese, but when it says to me, when I read the words to be used solely for, that means we can't use it for nothing else. Am I right? I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but does everybody understand that that's what that means?
It's not entirely clear.
It is not at all.
However, I don't think it means quite as much as what you say.
That's possible.
Mr. Knapp.
Well, and I don't know if it helps or not, but when I look at what Main Street, New Mexico is the 4 points for that, what Main Street Roswell has agreed to within the 4 points, and what the city of Roswell has done, it is not stating that the city money has to be split with that. It is all of the funding that Main Street Roswell receives. The city's money is only a portion of that. They also have donations, they all have sponsorships, and all those dollars can be spread out within that. At the end of the day, and I think that's where it goes back to with what Josh was saying a little bit as well too. Our funding, if it takes care of this piece of the puzzle, and then the other dollars take care of this piece, then we should be covering the responsibilities to the 4 point system that we're all agreeing to. So I don't know how that helps or anything, because I think we're wordsmithing as well too, as to finding some comfortable language. But the idea is that our money does not have to be split between all 4 points. The money that Main Street Roswell spends on the benefits of doing it has to be spread out upon those 4 points.
Are we talking 4 points, or are we talking about A, B, and C, the percentage that we want to see our money go toward?
I think they go together to a certain point. The whole idea was that on the largest, broadest level of this thing, we are trying to meet the 4 point criteria established with this program. The percentages are based upon our interpretation of how we're meeting those 4 points.
Okay. So again, back to line 19. And any renewal, the city will allocate funds each fiscal year to be used for the above A, B, and C, or something like that, Josh.
I like that. Clear. Better anyway.
Is that,
I mean,
I think that's what we're trying to say anyway.
This isn't a legal real issue. I mean.
Yeah.
You can write it however that
Yeah.
part wants. I mean, I don't even know that you could just take that whole line out. If you
Sounds like you would prefer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It sounds like it's kind of tying our hands for beautification maybe, or although beautification falls under retention.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Councilor Perry.
Well, I have a question then. If A is bumped up to 50, then something else has to give. If I understood that correctly, it seemed like I was hearing
Right.
that to fulfill Main Street's America's 4 points, you were wanting 50%.
Yes, sir. And then 25 for each of the following
Yeah,
lines.
the other two. Yeah. Okay.
Our request was 2550 and 25.
Say that again.
Our request was 2550 and 25.
But I think what we're hearing is that within the 4 points, what's the next word? 4-point
Approach.
approach.
Yes.
Thank you. I couldn't remember that. The 4-point approach,
part of that is business retention.
part of it is.
Absolutely. It is.
So that's why they're requesting to move it to move B, which is retention and economic development, to 25%. I don't have any problem with that.
I don't either.
Okay, so let's look at doing that. Let's, again, if we could add the word approach in there, it'd make me feel better too, because 4 points just sort of hang.
It doesn't sound right.
So on,
It hangs.
it does, it just hangs. I couldn't remember the word approach. So thank you. Line 16 then will, fulfill Main Street America's 4 points approach for 50%. Line B will continue to say business retention and economic development services 25%. Line C will continue recruitment services at 25%. And line 19, are we going to scratch that first sentence? City will allocate funds each fiscal year to be used solely for,
I think,
I think, I hate to tie succeeding agreements too.
Well, if we delete that whole line and it starts Main Street shall submit a funding request to the city by April 5th.
I think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think that maybe better worded would be in any renewal term, comma, Main Street shall submit a funding request to the city by April 5th. We need to tie it with the renewal to keep it within what the meaning of that paragraph
Okay.
is.
Okay, we're okay with that. All right, line 19 will read, in any renewal term, comma, the rest of that sentence is deleted, including the period. So it will read, in any renewal term, Main Street shall submit a funding request, etc.
Yes, ma'am.
We're okay with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilor Foster.
I want us to jump back up to line 10
10,
on that same page.
all right.
The city will give Main Street Roswell an additional $20,000 to support the salary for the executive director. This additional $20,000 must be used to augment the existing salary of the executive director. Current salary is 35. Okay, even if the salary is 35, your expense is higher than 35.
Okay,
That's
so
where this is where I'm going with this.
you guys definitely have a much older version, much older. Because the 60,000 was an agreed upon amount continuously, not an extra 20 for 1 year. Am I right, Mr. Neb?
You are correct.
So you guys are looking at a draft from, the draft you have would have been November 10th. Since then, there has been a A November 22nd suggested us sending suggestions. December 28th, changes were sent back to us. And December 9th, there was a revision. December 9th is the last revision we got from the city of Roswell.
This draft,
Is that correct?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this draft is the draft that the city is having you guys look at. Some of their requested changes we did not agree to.
Right.
And I think that is what Mrs. Boyles is referring to. This is the draft that was submitted back around December 29th.
Okay. So again, as was said prior to us getting into this, is the city was presenting to the committee this draft that we have in the current draft we have currently in the packet. So we're here now to negotiate.
That would have been a December 28th
No.
draft, not December 9th. I'm sorry, November 28th. December 9th is the last draft that the city of Roswell sent to Main Street Roswell, and that is not what you have in your packet.
I think in order to keep everybody up to date, when you run into these questions, like Councilor Foster has that question, let's start with Ms. Jennings to cover, because I know there are some of these things that we're talking about that we were comfortable with. I don't know why they're not in the document or not, but and then we can go into Main Street and have Main Street explain why they wanted to change. But it might flow a little bit easier, as I was under the understanding that this is the document that staff was comfortable with. So.
Okay, but I'm hearing that there were some changes submitted that were pretty much adopted. They are not adopted, but
Approved.
Oh, no, nothing's approved.
Nothing's approved.
No,
Well, I'm sorry,
I mean,
that were presented to Main Street Roswell as a new draft.
Madam Chair.
yes.
So Anita,
Yes.
what is the, I forget my voice, I'm getting to the end of my ability here. On paragraph 2 there, what is the final number that the city determined would be desirable for us to present? Is it the 50,000 or 60?
50,000.
Okay, so let's mark out the 55 and let's get that on to 60,000.
So the
That 55 is
55 was an
I see.
example. That was just an example.
Well, and that's my question, is because we know the expense of it, the salary expense is more than just.
So our original contract, our previous contract was for 40,000. In August, Main Street came to us, sent us an email and asked for an additional 20,000 to hire a qualified candidate. Mr. Nebb then sent an email back to them agreeing to increase the contract for 20,000 for an executive director. And we had a lot more discussion, a lot more negotiation. It was put into this at some point in October or November. It was agreed upon that it would be 60,000. In speaking with our city attorney, we had to justify that additional 20,000 because their scope of work did not increase. So we can't give an entity more money for nothing. That would violate the anti-donation clause. Is that correct? So that is why we outlined this additional 20,000 as it had originally been requested from Main Street Roswell. We're still giving them the 60,000.
Well, I agree totally with that. I want you to be able to have an executive director that's a full-time position, getting a full-time position, because it is a full-time job. And the 35,000 really didn't reflect a full-time position, even though they worked full-time. And so, but what I was trying to say is, so this is just an example, but we also got to take into account, we know that 35,000 is not the expense. Even if that's a salary, we know all the rest of the FICA withholding of it and all that. So if we're bumping it to 55,000, then they have an added expense of that 20,000 of FICA on their part. They have employers' expenses more than just the 20,000. So if we say we're giving them 20,000, that it has to be 55,000, we're tying their hands that they have, their expenses are increasing more than just the 20,000.
Well, let me just ask to simplify this. Josh, I think I'm asking you on line 12, in the parentheses where it says, for example, can we just scratch that? I mean,
We can, the issue with that, and that was to make it exceedingly clear, because I mean, I'm sitting here looking at the January 10th email to Ms. Boyles with, the discussion as to where the negotiations are with this language, changing it back and explaining why legal is changing the things and they're changing them. For the reason, not just, and we get into this regressive negotiation where send it, it gets redacted all back to the way it was. And it's like, I've explained why we can't do certain things. Now, as to the.
Josh, can I interrupt you? Can you come to the table so I can hear you and just sit with us? That would help me if you would. I'm sorry to do that to you.
Back to the camera.
You might just turn that.
or if you want to talk to the.
I mean,
I can back up.
Wow.
And that works. I like it.
Allows me to hear you.
Yeah. This is it. So, right, that was there, that was put there to be, that's why it's just parenthetically as, an example, is to make it clear that there's $40,000 is being allocated to Main Street, the addition, and then the second line or the second section is an additional 20,000 will be allocated for this purpose. These were my instructions based on, as I understand it, Halverson had said that they needed additional money for something to this effect.
So what I'm saying, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I mean, paragraph 2 of Exhibit C on line 10 already says the city will give Main Street an additional 20,000 to support the salary for the executive director. This additional must be used to augment the existing salary of the executive director.
Yeah.
So it says, since it says that,
It's for emphasis and clarification so that there.
the example is,
Miscommunication as to what was intended by that additional $20,000.
I understand that, but
We
to me,
can like it if you would like. I'm not wed to it as a piece of drafting.
I mean, I just think because your question was specific to the 55,000 and it's only an example. So I guess.
Yeah, and that's where we already say it's augmenting.
Must.
Must augment, that it must augment. Well, that could also mean that it pays part of the other expenses of the employer expense.
No, I don't think that was the intent. And on top.
It's still a salary, but.
But see, the issue is, it's not to augment it's to augment the existing salary, not to be used for salary, because then you could literally go defund the salary, keep the salary at 35 and just use the city's money to fund $20,000 worth of the salary, freeing up $20,000 of money that is, not subject, I guess, to an audit to this. And since it's the city's money, the idea is to make it very clear as to what the city wishes the money to be used for.
Okay.
Well, and I guess. Yeah. I just know that we're causing, the expense of their side is going to be going up. The employer expense is going to be going up. But I do think, the whole idea is to make sure they have a full time, pay their.
And that's what I think you're after as well, right?
Can it read salaries and benefits? Because one of the problems we have come across here of late is individuals interested in the position, but they're needing health insurance. And we don't have the additional funding to be able to do health insurance. Many people are willing to take less in salary if we can find them good insurance. And many times it ends up costing more for the insurance than what we were offering them. It depends on which company you go to, obviously. But can it read salary and benefits? Is that legal?
I don't see why it would be illegal. Nothing is springing to my mind right now, and that's why I try not to draft documents in a public meeting because weird questions like this come up, but nothing comes to my mind right now that would suggest that that wouldn't be legally permissible. I don't know if that meets the character and what you want to do with it.
I'm actually comfortable with this. I'm going to give you just a little bit more background. I apologize for digressing a little bit. But the $40,000 that goes to Main Street Roswell is the minimum that we are obligated to provide to Main Street Roswell to enact the mission of the Main Street initiative. I guarantee you that any organization that has a little bit more capital, a little bit more resources will be able to function a little bit better. We've seen it over and over with what we were doing. So rather than to keep them at the minimum, the whole intent was to bring it up to $60,000 so that they had more resources to get through their, how to meet the legalese. I believe that, you know, as long as there's no problem with that, because I know that the primary intent was to elevate the position of the executive director and to seek out somebody that may be more well-rounded or any of that nature in order to help that mission. So whatever language we can use in order to do that, I just know that if they have these extra funds, I expect that they will be more effective in what their mission is.
Thank you.
So I say we add salary and benefits.
Thank you, yes.
Is that acceptable, Josh?
Legally impermissible.
That's the, okay.
So augment the existing salary and benefits of the executive director. And then
I would say, sir, I'm sorry, could you say staff? Because we may end up with an executive director and an assistant. I mean, can you say staff? None of our board members are allowed to take any type of pay. So it would not be any of our board members. It would be strictly paid staff. You can leave it as an executive director and we can come up with the money elsewhere for an assistant if that comes to need.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm just thinking that if you were able to get a seasoned person to be an executive director at that amount, 60,000 with benefits and everything, they should be able to bring Main Street to a place of bringing in more interest in development to be able to grow that would allow for Main Street to bring in other employers. I would
I would agree
think.
with that, yes.
So I think that the heart of the city is to, from what I'm understanding, is to be as much of a part of helping Main Street to get to that point, to have a full-time executive director that will give that boost of energy to thrive even greater. So I think keeping it there would be good.
And I would also just add on top of that, this is an annual agreement
Yes.
for renewals. And at any point in time, as we walk through this conversation, if there is something more that either side needs, we can create that conversation occurring. And it's just,
And there's nothing saying that this can't be amended at any point
that's
either.
my point, is that we can amend as we go as well too. So keep that in mind as you're trying to find the spirit of this thing. And as fast as things move around here, we're 8 months into this agreement already, of a 1-year agreement. So
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I would only say that
there's room, there's time.
I think this may be a 1-year agreement with one extension.
Well,
I may be,
no, let's finish this and then we'll go back to that if we can. Are we okay with this now?
Yes, ma'am.
Are we
Salary
okay
and
with
benefits.
Exhibit C compensation 2, 3, and 4? As we've gone, let's finish this one up. The amount funded is subject to the city council's absolute discretion, so we know that. Is there anything else? Molly, do you have anything else on Exhibit C?
In Exhibit C, I believe I do. Give me just a moment.
Get back to terms.
Because we had already covered the percentages and,
Yes.
okay, so we had covered that. There was a typo further down the page from the draft that I had, it was just an extra period. Let me make sure that what I have been working with, it's the same as what is over here. Give me just a moment. I am so sorry. I do not have the copy you have. I do on my phone.
Oh,
I wrote on mine.
I don't either.
There was something.
Yeah. Miss Molly,
Yes, sir.
grab you a copy of.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much, because it is difficult. Scrolling back there. I'm like, what?
thank you. So while they're talking, okay, so while they're talking, if we, have you found anything on that? I'm sorry.
No, ma'am. No, I don't think so.
Okay,
I'm waiting for the,
right, for the copy.
yes, ma'am.
If we let's go back to the first page of the professional service agreement, just to clarify something that has been brought up and that I had a concern about. And in the packet we're looking at, I'm looking on page 20, but it's the first of 11 pages of the agreement. I'm looking at line 18, which is number 1 term. And what it basically says, the term of this agreement shall commence on the effective day and shall continue for a period of, I think the suggestion, I guess, was 2 years. The agreement may be thereafter renewed for additional 1 year. And what my question is and concern is it seems to me this should coincide with our agreement with the state. And I don't know when that was last signed and when this renewal comes up. You're going to get your exercise standing up and sitting down.
Yeah. No.
Again, line 18 of the first page.
Yeah.
And my point, and the point is, I don't know when, maybe you folks, when the agreement with the state
You know, the
is.
resolution was listed up there. It said 21 dash. If you back up to the resolution, one of the first slides there.
Was that the resolution with New Mexico Main
Yes,
Street?
yeah.
Okay.
So that resolution was done in 21, I believe it was 21-70. 20-40. That was the, I would say that's the last resolution. So it appears that it's probably a 2-year agreement with Main Street, New Mexico and the city of Roswell. And then we enter into an agreement with Main Street Roswell for operation of that relationship.
So this is with Roswell.
But I think the resolution is required by Main Street, New
It is.
Mexico.
It is.
For that purpose. And so I don't have the agreement from Main Street, but I would say that at worst case, it was in 21 because we try to match them up.
That's what
We try to match them up as closely as possible. This agreement expired in June of 2021. So, but I believe you guys had a resolution. Do you know the resolution for Main Street, New Mexico?
2040?
That is, so that was the last one. So
there will be another one coming up this year.
Resolution then with Main Street, New Mexico.
Thank you, Juanita. You're welcome.
Figure that the Main Street, New Mexico agreement
It's coming up.
expires on June 30th, 2022.
Correct. I believe. I would have to go back and look at it.
Yeah.
But I would say that is, I think they follow a 2-year scale.
So it seems to me then what we should do with this, since it actually starts July 1, 2021, is make it a 1 year with a 2-year renewal, which would be to coincide with the next 2-year agreement with the state.
I know we have no problem with that.
Yeah, we had talked about that. We didn't have a problem other than the funding and the allocation being per year by the council. That was the only issue that we had with it.
But but I think that part of that agreement, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, that one will always remain there anyway. And so if you do not allocate money to it, then that makes the agreement null and void. But I would say that we're better to have it in sequence with Main Street New Mexico and keep it simpler.
That's what I'm trying to
I
do.
think it took us 3 years to get the lease agreement with Main Street all tied together. So yeah, that makes sense.
So then on page, I guess the first page of the professional services agreement, which is page 20 in our packet, line 18, one term, the term shall be of the effective date, which is going to be July 1, 2021. 2021. Oh, I guess for a 2-year period.
The only concern I have about doing this right now is that I believe it's the compensation in Appendix C may be written for per year renewals. If you start doing a 2-year thing and the agreement becomes for 2 years, then you're going to want to double all the numbers. So then it's like you can't have a 1-year agreement and then a 2-year agreement with the same agreement. It just gets complicated. I mean, we can write it in, just.
Oh, okay. So what
We write
should
it
this
as a
say?
yearly rate, and then if we do it as 2 years, the yearly rate is still.
And that may be how it's written. I just don't remember exactly how that one section may be affected by these changes, sort of as we sit
Well,
here.
that's what I'm thinking. So I think what I'd like to say now, just so we can move on, is are we all in agreement of making number one term to coincide with the state agreement with us?
Yes.
Okay, Josh?
Could you repeat that one more time? We're all in agreement.
That this professional service agreement, the dates of the effective date and the ending date, I don't want to say termination because that's not what we want, but are coincide with the same dates as the city's agreement with the state of New Mexico Main Street.
We can try to make that out. I have no idea what those dates are.
Problem is that it's been a 2-year agreement with them. So
That's
it runs out, 2-year agreement runs out July 1st, 2022.
Right, so this would be a 1-year agreement with a renewal of
2 years. But I get, Madam Chair, that I believe I get what Councilor Foster is saying. That's why this one was written as the 1 year, so that when the new renewal comes up,
Yeah.
this one would be renewed. And then at that time, we would be on the same track.
So this is a 1-year term and it has a 2-year option to renew. Okay,
But there's nothing in this that talks about the different price compensation,
no,
for the 2
You'd
years.
have to change that line too.
It just says the initial term of this agreement, because if you come back to it every year, you can ratify, in the renewal term or something to that effect.
I don't care, you guys work it out. But we're starting that agreement with what we're saying. Okay, we'll move on. And let me just say for the record is that Parker Patterson is on with us on GoTo from his sick bed, I guess. So Parker,
I like
thank
that though,
you.
he's muted. That's
Yes.
kind of nice. Lawyer.
But if you feel the need to chime in, certainly do so. Okay, thank you. Hope you feel better. All right, so I want to take care of that. So now where are we, Molly? I'm sorry.
I'm trying to compare my notes with this draft. I apologize if it takes me a moment to get caught up.
Okay, let me kind of move on to, we all are in agreement, I'm sure, that on page of the 2 of the agreement, page 21 of the packet, that under reporting, Main Street shall make the following reports. Quarterly, line 16 should say reporting to the community development director or the city's or the individual designated by the city. We're all in agreement with that.
Correct.
Okay, so we're okay with that.
On line C, the board of directors has asked for an
Wait,
additional,
see on,
I'm sorry, it would be, I'm so sorry, number 29. Well, it starts on, under audit. 26, the city shall reserve its right to.
okay, line 26 on page 21 of the packet. Go ahead.
So at the end of that, the Main Street Roswell Board has asked for an additional sentence reading something along the lines of, I don't know what the legalese is, only one limited audit will be requested and only if there is any reasonable suspicions of malfeasance.
I don't think that's an audit.
Yeah.
No,
It's not to,
that is why we did not agree to.
Okay. The city has not agreed to that.
okay.
They're,
Well, our worry was that just out of the blue, we'd be hit with a 12 or 15,000, a $12,000 audit, because that's about what we've been told it would cost to have.
And I think part of this is we learn as we go, we learn as we grow. The challenge we have is, of course, of what we've run into in the past with other organizations and everything. The intent is to not hit Main Street for any audit other than those cursory checks to make sure and validate that the taxpayer dollars have been appropriately spent for what we're all agreeing to do there. I don't know what that verbiage should be. I leave it up to how to do that, but I don't know if you want to tie your hands for any type of a requirement of an audit regardless of that.
Specifically.
I would say that I think we should be respectful of that space of time as well too, and say we don't need an audit every month or
Right.
every day or whatever.
And that was a concern. They were like, the board did bring up, are we going to be audited every 6 months? Because that's going to get really expensive. Of course, our 990s are available to anybody online. As a 501c3, we have.
In my mind, it's generally just an annual audit at best. I think that we have done financial updates at the end of the contracts and those things as well too.
Yes.
that term, I can't remember that term. I know what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
It's not actually an audit, it's a financial review or something.
Yeah.
And you,
What?
Reconciliation.
Oh, but,
part of the reporting is our monthly.
right. But I think what's important, excuse me, I'm interrupting you. I think what's so important to remember in a situation like this is the city is audited. So they are going to expect that the money that we contract out to other agencies
Can be
that can
accounted
also be
be,
accounted
yes,
for through an
absolutely.
audit. So,
And I know in our conversations as well too, is that we're not talking a great deal of public taxpayer funding.
right.
So in my mind, I think it would be, I don't know what the verbiage should be, but the intent of that is that we need to do an audit occasionally just to make sure the checks and balances, because the yellow book audit is making sure that the money was spent appropriately. And then also that the organization has those checks and balances in place so that there is less opportunity for any misappropriation of anything that is happening. So I don't know what that looks like. I understand what Main Street is trying to say is
Yes.
that because we're not talking a great deal of money. I think the nice thing though is I think the audit is generally based upon how much money is flowing through. And so it should be a fairly inexpensive audit as opposed to outage.
Yeah, a full-fledged. Okay. So we're okay with leaving the terminology that's in there at this point.
I would believe so, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to, I guess, governance,
Governance.
cooperation with other entities.
Those all looked good. We did think that it would be appropriate to say or other organizations. We're on lines 16 and 17, it talks about the economic development, Hispano Chamber of Commerce. There's other organizations that we've worked with, including the SBA and West. And, if you want to put that in there, fine. If you don't, we understand. But we want you as a council or as a committee to understand that there are other
Sure.
organizations that we work with that benefit our stakeholders because they offer classes that we help sponsor, offer the space or whatever the case might be. And I know this is, I can see a couple of people rubbing their foreheads going.
And I don't think the verbiage actually precludes their ability to
Right.
work with
Yeah.
anybody else.
Yeah.
These were the most important ones because
Right.
of the local entities. of what-
Yeah.
Well, and I liked it because they're also entities that we fund. And so it's
Yes.
where we're not wanting to duplicate, we're not throwing money, we're giving money to people that are competing against something.
Right. And I'm not trying to nitpick everything. I'm just letting you know some of the things that the board has brought up that were of concern.
I think you're okay with
Yes,
any others, of course, but these were
Right.
naming.
those being specified is not an issue for us at all.
Okay, good.
Just as long as we're not tied to only working with them, which that does not say. It is not worded that way.
No, it isn't. So, okay.
Okay.
So let's go down to line 28, which is the UFO Festival.
We would like to change that to city-sponsored events. So not just the UFO Festival, but any city-sponsored event that, we're not going to be taking intellectual property from the city. We're not going to be utilizing any logos or anything like that without prior written approval. So anywhere where it says UFO Festival, we would like for it to read city-sponsored events. And that, we will, there's a spot in here where it talks about Main Street will use social media to help amplify the city's event. And in return, the city will utilize its social media to help amplify Main Street's events. Is some of the wording we were looking for.
Madam Chair,
Yes, please.
members of the committee, this was a section that was pretty much non-negotiable with the city of Roswell. It was tied to the numerous confusions of social media pages with their event Alien Fest last year. We came to the agreement of what we felt was a good collaboration in support of what they would be doing downtown and what the city was doing, as Main Street agreed to step away from doing the UFO Festival.
Okay.
I would suggest maybe a marriage between the two positions and say, I think we want to make sure that the UFO Festival is listed in there by name.
Yes.
But we could also add the city-sponsored events, including UFO Festival. I think because of the challenges that we all have had, we want to make sure that we never go back into those kind of moments. And I think we're there. I think at Molly, that meets partway. But you're right. I mean, there is more festivals than just UFO Festival. So.
And there are plenty of ways that Main Street can support, not just festivals. Mr. Neb, I was also thinking, recently the event held at at the convention center for New Year's, any holiday type events the city might be sponsoring would be things that Main Street could help.
Other city activities and events, including UFO Festival.
I think that
Titling this.
Yeah, like at least that meets us both in the middle somewhere.
I believe that would.
I agree with you. I think we're always stronger working together.
Exactly.
Everything we do. And so if we can do it that way, I think we can make that work.
Okay, so we're changing the title of number 8, basically to something that we've just now agreed upon, Josh.
City-sponsored events and UFO Festival.
Okay, city-sponsored events and Roswell UFO Festival.
Including
not
And I had including. I had it. Okay, good. So where does that go with the language then in a?
I believe it would just be everywhere where it says Roswell UFO Festival, we would include the words prior to that, city-sponsored events, including Roswell UFO Festival.
Okay, we can work that language.
Yeah, that should be an easy
Okay,
control find.
great.
That hopefully will be an easy one.
Yep, okay, gotcha. Now we're on page 23 of the packet, 4 of 11 of the agreement. We're starting off with that subsection now B, C, D, and E, is it the same thing just to reflect city-sponsored events?
Well, that one is, Madam Chair, that one is different because it is talking directly about their current merchandise, I believe.
Oh, that's right.
They already have.
Yes.
Into,
And
okay. So we're saying that Main Street may sell and retain all profits from their existing merchandise.
correct.
Is that a lot? Do you guys have?
We do have quite a bit.
Or-
We do have quite a bit. One of the things that we ordered a large number of, because we intended to use them for multiple years, are collector coins. And they were
Okay.
on the expensive side, but we ordered a bunch
Okay.
because we got a price break.
Sure.
We will need to go back up to, I'm so sorry, under on line 22, including all city-owned, not associated intellectual property. Because there are other,
What line are you on?
I am on line 22, page 22.
Gotcha. Including all,
City-owned intellectual property. Because when you say
That's right.
associated, that could also mean things from the UFO Museum that talk about the UFO festival. And
But
I would,
we could hear from staff as to their thoughts on that.
This is a really bad idea to modify this section. I understand the sentiment to add additional city-sponsored events in there, but it muddies the waters about as to the scope and depth of the city's intellectual property. And the idea is to be specific about what the intellectual property that is being protected. And, you know, when you say in other stuff and when you argue about it, if this ever ends up in court and you start arguing about it, you've muddied the waters now, and that decision then takes that much longer. And the longer it takes, the more expensive it is to get through, the case eventually. So it benefits, I think, the city to keep it as clear as possible as to what the intellectual property is about the UFO festival and it's about the Roswell are. And those are the two things. Not the city, I don't think in this agreement is discussing any other city-sponsored events. But I don't know if this is an appropriate section to add those ideas, legally speaking.
okay,
So
that makes sense.
and going off of what our recommendation from legal is that I would add another paragraph outside of this one then that covers the other city-sponsored events, but it does not talk about the capacity of what the UFO festival is. I would say that, if we don't have if the city does not have a true ownership on that intellectual property, then we don't have really a position for it. So the UFO museum stuff as well, they have every right to do what they're doing with their intellectual property. So,
Okay, so then,
I'm sorry to, it's,
no,
I'm going to lean on
Putting-
Sure.
for that, make sure that we don't.
so then could we under 8, keep the title city-sponsored events, including Roswell UFO Festival, leave A, insert a B, Josh?
If there's not already a B.
there is a B,
B, C, D, and E, but I'm saying add
everything. Add another paragraph.
thing down that would discuss what we're saying.
We could bump them all down by.
That's what I'm
That's what
saying.
I was going to
That's not a
say.
problem.
Including
All down by
A, I
one.
would leave A where A is.
No, I mean, like,
A should
we
be the
can
city
make
sponsor.
compliance with law, paragraph 9,
Yeah.
now
Oh,
paragraph 10.
okay.
And just insert.
Insert a total,
Right.
And then just leave Roswell UFO Festival by itself as
By
a,
itself. It should stay in this section by itself.
Okay.
When he goes and
Yeah, Madam Chair, the A through E there,
needs to stay.
it's all dealing with the UFO.
Okay,
He is an absolute no for us.
he is boilerplate that just describes the, intellectual property law in the United States. It's your intellectual property law continues on even after an agreement is terminated or otherwise ends. That doesn't mean if the agreement terminates that the property, the intellectual property terminates. Your property it's your intellectual property, it's yours, it continues. It's not contingent on this agreement, and that's all that subsection E8E says.
Oh, okay.
Well, if that's the way the court would see it, then E is not needed. But I will say, and I know this is going to start a fight, and I apologize in advance, the city does not actually own the UFO festival. It is putting on the UFO, and I know that's going to start a fight. We're not planning on doing UFO festival. We're not. We will, or Alien Fest during that time period. We will help put on events during the 75th anniversary. But quite honestly, guys, the city didn't start it, the UFO festival. There have been more years of the city not being involved or running the UFO festival than, so intellectual property, call it what you want. It doesn't belong to the city.
The challenge we have.
So city owned is the wording.
Confusion that was caused last year with all the different sites and everything else. We do not own the UFO festival.
Correct.
The city does, or the community does, however you want to say that. What we have asked is that we've asked Main Street Roswell as the sponsor of that entity to not use these sites so that it eliminates the confusion within everything that we're trying to do. And I believe that Main Street is saying that we're good with that as well too. I understand what you're saying about what the nature of it is, but the whole idea is that we don't have a relationship with everybody else out there, but we have a relationship with Main Street Roswell. And that's why we're asking our partner to not utilize these things that confuse the entire structure of what the UFO festival is supposed to be for our community. So.
Okay. So you're saying, no, wait a minute. I don't know. Where should we go now? Josh, give me some direction.
I think Molly was just reiterating exactly their position. I don't know if there was any problem with actually the verbiage though, other than.
City-owned intellectual property
Yeah.
is the verbiage that would be appropriate. And then the letter E is an absolute no for us. And I think I tried to explain this, and I'll try again now that we have the committee here. Quite honestly, guys, UFO Festival has bounced between so many different organizations. I think most of us know that have been here for more than a couple of years. In 5 years, Main Street may be asked to take it back. We took it back. I think you probably were on the board at that time in the month of April when the UFO Museum walked away from it. The city came to Main Street Roswell. This was 8 years ago, I believe. 9 years ago, and asked to take over. So it's been through several different organizations. To put this in there makes no sense because we don't know what's going to happen.
But the city of Roswell funded each one of those.
No, sir. No, sir. The city of Roswell did not start funding until like 2007. Parker.
Yeah, I just want to point out that, yes, Roswell UFO Festival is a registered trademark of the city of Roswell. It is intellectual property owned by the city of Roswell. And to the extent that other organizations have, quote, done it, they've done so under the auspices and direction of the city as the city's agent. In other words, the city retained that property and those organizations did so on behalf of the city as the city's contract. At all times, the city has retained the ownership of the intellectual property. Just to clarify that point.
So when did the city take ownership of the UFO Festival? What year?
I mean, I'd have to look up the exact year, but it is well documented.
I'm sorry, I don't believe it is.
Are you saying it's not trademarked?
Well, I don't know how Jermaine.
It is not currently showing as trademarked.
There's probably a piece of this thing that everybody needs to be aware of, and we danced a little bit around it, but Main Street Roswell does not exist without the city of Roswell. If there is no relationship between City of Roswell and Main Street Roswell does not exist in the nature of what the whole program is. That doesn't mean that they can't have a downtown association or anything else that they want to operate with that, but this program is based upon having a governmental sponsor and a local board to operate. You cannot meet the sponsorship requirements without either one of the pieces of that thing. So we may be arguing more about semantics within this thing, because if this agreement is not in place, then there is no Main Street Roswell.
Okay.
Because there's no
Right.
sponsors for that fits the confines of that. So I would say that Area E is not an issue. And if there remains a relationship with the City of Roswell and Main Street, again, we're talking about a very simple contractual change because we still have a relationship that E will never become utilized. Because we have that relationship. So I think we're worried about stuff. I do have a crystal ball on my desk. If anybody wants to try to use that, I'm done.
I think what Parker was trying to make clear is that there's a distinction between who runs the UFO festival from year to year to year and who owns the intellectual property of Roswell UFO Festival. And the actual registered trademark Roswell UFO Festival, in order to use that type of intellectual property, is with the permission of the property owner.
We could not find it on the trademark site.
I can send you a copy.
Okay.
I guess in the city's position, the language needs to remain. So I don't know how to fix that from this because we're talking that one side doesn't like it, the other side believes it has to be there.
Oh, yeah.
While y'all are doing that, can you give me enough time to go get I need to plug my oxygen in?
So the
You
number.
want me to go get your blood? You sure?
Okay.
I need to walk.
This was done on the 17th of March,
Right.
2021. The certificate number is Tango Kilo 9912354. And it's
Tango Hilo 913,
9912354.
oh, 99.
I don't know. No.
Okay. So thank you for looking that up.
Appreciate that.
Let's maybe set this aside and go through some more of where we are.
Well, a suggestion was made that all of this UFO stuff be taken out and being done as a separate contract so we can go ahead and get through scope of services. Because obviously scope of services, the UFO festival and such is not necessarily part of our services. Everyone keeps talking about they want us doing less and less events. So do we want to pull that out and go through the rest of this? Or do we,
Who made that suggestion?
one of my board members?
Seems like a bad idea to
Okay,
break.
all right.
Especially when it's already.
Okay. So at this point, we're leaving E on page 23 of the packet and moving on to compliance with law. I haven't seen any concern with that part. Molly, did you guys have anything?
Compliance with law. No, there were no questions.
Bless you. Record keeping, which is 11, section 11 of the agreement, page 24 of the packet. Record keeping and inspection.
There were no questions or concerns on that either.
Where we at? I'm sorry.
We're on page 24 of the packet. What, independent contractor and then termination, anything there?
We were hoping for an additional paragraph,
Where would that be?
make it C, make it B, whichever you want,
Under what?
under independent contractor. So it would be after line 15,
15?
if you want to make it letter B and then bump everything. City managers, counselors, and other, oh, that's not the way we worded it.
It's actually
We're
starting
not-
on 21 to
That's
30.
that's where I am. I'm on page 21. I mean, on page 24, line 21, number 12, independent contractor.
Correct.
Okay,
Line 22.
okay.
Let me find where I put this.
Yeah, that.
I've seen this a lot. I've taken it out a lot. I've added it back in. Here.
The city of Roswell, its council members, officials, officers, employees, agents, and volunteers will not speak on behalf of or set expectations for Main Street Roswell beyond the agreed upon work.
Tell me where you are again.
I'm asking for.
Just to add it.
Is that what you just read is what you want added?
Yes. We've had more than once
In this packet, yeah.
been told by outside individuals that the city was speaking on our behalf.
Well, that doesn't mean it's true.
And that's true. You're absolutely right.
I mean,
But I had 3 different people at the same meeting say that they were told that Main Street specifically requested there be no food trucks on Main Street when that was not something we requested.
Okay. You know, if I'm not mistaken, there's something in state statute that says that a city councilor does not speak for any, for the council unless voted on by the council. Does that cover that or not?
I don't know the language, whichever way you want to go. I guess the challenge is that I'm not sure who actually said that either, for at least the example that we used. And so I know that at least City Hall would never put Main Street into that predicament. So individual city councilors, I don't think we have any control over.
That's it.
A certain
Yeah.
point as to what they say.
Right.
You see it often enough.
I can't control.
All right, yeah.
Oh, no, it's true.
I don't think the city, as far as we're concerned, the city does not have the ability to speak for Main Street, so there's no problem with any of that language anyway, because I don't think we have the ability to do that. In the scope of the relationship between the city and Main Street, we have every right.
Within the scope, okay, of the relationship.
So under independent contractor, it's very specific that Main Street cannot speak
Correct.
on the behalf of the city. We're just asking for the same thing respectfully.
And I don't know if that would be going under the independent contractor. The independent contractor section is stating that Main Street is not a city entity. They are their own entity. And so I'm not sure where to put that, but I can appreciate why how they want to deal with it. I've just never been able to get it to work.
That's it.
The general perspective is it doesn't really belong in the independent contractor section. Main Street's, contractor, so to speak, of the city, not the other way around. So it's not, it's just, it doesn't really fit in that space. I don't know what, so, I mean, as I think to Joe's point, what's the remedy if you say, hey, people are saying what Main Street's going to do? I mean, how is the city A supposed to control that? I mean,
That's
what's
it.
the actual, fix for that if that continues to happen. So I mean, it seems to me a bit of surplusage, but there's nothing that, and I think it's misplaced in the document, but I don't think it's fatal in any way. So that's,
I'll just leave it on the table.
Okay. Okay, let's move on then. Are we down to 11, record keeping and inspection? Which is on page 24 of the packet.
well, I thought we
We
were.
already passed that. We already passed.
I was like, wait, didn't we already cover that?
Did that.
Start going back and we're going to whoop.
Yeah.
We're on insurance.
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 Insurance,
5 of your packet,
insurance number 14.
7 of their revision.
And there were no concerns regarding insurance
That's okay.
or the
Indemnification,
indemnification and hold harmless. No
okay.
questions there.
Next,
Can we go to dispute resolution?
There was a discussion that our board had, and this would just be to allow the committee to understand why some of this has taken so long. We had a meeting, and if this is a long one, October 14th, we met with the city. We, thank God, had this meeting recorded. November 3rd, Juliana asked for an update. November 10th, we were given an MOU. That MOU included none of the things, okay, almost none of the things. I have all the emails. I'm happy to forward them to you. We were given an MOU that did not include most of what was in the meeting. So then we asked for a copy of the meeting and actually did timestamps on the areas where the city attorney had not taken into consideration what had been discussed because he had not bothered to watch the meeting. So he didn't know. So here we are, we go from October 14th. He gives us an MOU on November 10th that was all wrong. November 22nd, we had another meeting with the city. This time, the attorney was present and we got the changes on the new draft. We sent over changes December 28th and got back a draft. No, I did that backwards. We got back the draft on December 9th and sent over additional changes on the 28th. So between October 14th and December 9th, that was more than one draft that did not include items that had been specifically discussed between myself, Juliana, Juanita, and Mr. Neb.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
some of the requested changes were not agreed to. Therefore, they were not included in the revised draft that had been going back and forth. And I can provide you guys a document of all of our good faith efforts of negotiating the contract if you would like, with meetings and emails.
The attorney was not present and did not take the time to watch what had been discussed to be able to, in good faith, negotiate.
The document we put out there as well too, because I agree, this has taken a lot longer
And
than
that's
it
a
needs
council
to.
requester and
There
council.
are at least over 33 different contacts from the April 14th first meeting all the way up until through this. And so we concur. However, I think in order to put the weight of what these delays are on the side, I would remain neutral to that because there was a lot of conversation back and forth, a lot of different meetings. Little box of time where everybody was. Main Street is working without an executive director. Main Street has new board members, and so they were trying to incorporate everybody within their mix. And we were walking through a lot of the similar kind of issues with that. So Yeah, that list is what we saw as primary points within the whole conversation all the way through as well too. We agree with Ms. Boyles that this has taken a lot longer than it needed to, but I would say that we all share a little bit of that weight.
And I will agree that there were times when Main Street was unable to answer emails. I'm just trying to make it clear it was not all on us.
Well, personally here, I appreciate this discussion, but we're here today, not here to talk about the past. We're trying to resolve this. And I just would like to continue getting through that. I can certainly appreciate the time that's been spent on this and the hours of negotiating and thinking and rewriting. But the point is, we're here today to come to a conclusion and get this thing to full council and get it signed. So forgive me for being so.
We're ready to move to Exhibit A if everyone else is.
Where are we? That is.
Page 31 in your packet.
Thank you, Molly. Okay, this is the scope of work. We've already skipped and talked about a little of it, but let's start, like you're saying, on page 1 of 3, which is 31 in the packet.
So line 9,
Mm-hmm.
it has specified no less than 9 face-to-face meetings and 6 phone calls per quarter. That's not a problem, but strictly to encourage,
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page.
Madam Chair, these detailed numbers that are in your packet contract were directly from their former executive director.
Yes.
Okay.
For the record.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm.
The numbers are not where we're having,
Okay, the underlined part is new to what? It's all new.
It's all new. Yes.
it's new.
It's not,
new
it
to
was
the
not
scope of
part
work.
of what last year's scope
Right.
was. It is more defined to what they envisioned, how they were going to meet the scope of
Okay.
this.
Okay, so this is business retention and economic development.
So the issue, the one, there's towards the end of line 9, it says to encourage clean windows and storefronts maintained areas. So each quarter,
We're not.
15 times I will have had to approach, 15 times in a quarter, I will have had to approach, I say I, right now I'm.
This is what they provided.
Okay, but specifically to encourage clean windows, storefronts and maintained areas, the 15 times I understand, but I did not know that
Well, it wasn't you, but
it-
this is what was presented.
specifically to encourage clean windows, because other spots, it talks about, telling the businesses about ways that they can improve their business through different marketing and things like that. I'll be honest, 15 times a quarter, you're going to be hitting the same businesses approximately every other quarter. And I don't know who our executive director is going to be, but about the third time they start to walk into a business and tell them, you still haven't cleaned your windows, which they don't. We've got quite a few downtown that do not regularly clean their windows or blow off their front porches. They're going to get the door slammed in their face. So just that particular wording, I'm assuming, as Juanita has said, maybe that came from our previous executive director, but that's a little too specific.
Okay, Madam Chair, can I ask?
Yes.
As part of the vision, as part of the, whatever would be within the 4 points and everything of Main Street, this would be a portion of what Main Street would be doing, correct? So I'm trying to understand what is the better way of trying to get the businesses to keep and maintain these areas. If it's not a face-to-face or phone call, I guess is what I'm
But we
trying to.
wish we knew. We've actually offered to go into businesses and clean their windows. And we do clean the outside of many windows during the April planting days. We bring in extra volunteers, many times the scout troops to help us. They do the planting while the adults do the window cleaning. So I don't know how else to encourage, unless we just write them a nasty note.
I'm okay. But I have to agree that this language is a little more problematic. We are, in my mind, Main Street's success is built upon education of those individuals of the downtown area that they are trying to help. I think offering to go in and actually clean the windows is probably a little bit above and beyond that as well too.
Rent out.
I wouldn't stay with just the windows themselves. I would talk about the sweeping, and
And it does.
the presentation of how the businesses can look more open and look more inviting. But for Main Street, I have to agree a little bit with this language. It's like telling your kids to clean their bedroom, but telling your renter to clean the bedroom. Probably more like it, because we don't have that ability to go and force them to do that. So in my mind, I think we should focus on that educational side, because I think the thing that Main Street has done excellent is when they bring in speakers, when they bring in trainers, when they bring in people. I think we can send out brochures, not saying you didn't clean your windows, but did you know that you could expect 10% more visitation by people if you're
I
clean,
agree.
if you're neat. And so,
I agree. I see everybody kind of nodding. Yes.
Madam Chair, and I think like Juanita said, I don't think this is something that the city came up with to try to choose. And y'all can't speak on behalf of a former director, but as we work through this, let's, try to recognize that. And I think you're right, Joe, that the education is really of how they benefit from the clean area
we appreciate the contact that Main Street can do with these businesses. Same thing with the EDC in business retention and expansion. You want to be a resource to those businesses and get to them before they collapse or have a big issue. The maintaining of their space is a very similar part of that as well too. So any of that language in there that gets that specific, I would say that we need to go lean on the educational side, and that we're making contact with these businesses to make sure that nobody gets lost in the shuffle.
So can we look at some rewriting then of, I'm going to say
I think-
one.
I don't think we should be that specific of what they talk about, because what you're wanting is reaching out to those, saying, how can you be of service to them? What do you need from us? Is there anything? And because the other portion of it is we want y'all to be the liaison to us if there's something that we could do better for them. So it's a give and take, and that's where your job is to work with them and make it to a point where it's a better partnership with everybody.
Madam Chair, members of the council, I think what the contract that they revised yesterday and what they said, if you guys are fine with it, I think that is something that we would agree to as well. They made revisions to it.
No less than 12 personal contact,
Correct, yes.
including face-to-face, Zoom, tech meetings, phone calls, and emails per quarter. I'm open.
The reason I changed some
think-
of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
I was just going to say, the reason I changed some of that is we are having trouble. Some of our businesses are very much sticklers for masks and things like that. And that's not always. And then our stakeholder meetings, we used to do our stakeholder meetings in person, and we've tried to get back to that. We're not getting the participation that we were hoping for. So we've gone back to doing our stakeholders via Zoom. And we do get anywhere from 3 to 7 people on at any given time. And then we have a lot of people that come in and watch it afterwards and give us their notes, give us their comments then. So I do.
So we'll just reword business retention and economic development 1, which is A through H, and make it a little broader and maybe a little, okay?
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Okay. Then bless you.
God bless you.
Anything else on the rest of the retention retention
I'm on page 32,
Okay,
line number 21.
okay,
And I think this is just one of those, the wording is weird to us. Including without limitation, not limited to, do those not mean the same thing? I mean, I'm not sure. I think they mean the
Yes.
same thing. Okay, that was something, God bless you.
Bless you.
We were not sure if they meant the same thing. They sound the same. And then, so that's clear on page 32. I believe we are
okay,
clear.
good.
Page 33,
Mhm.
line number 2,
Okay,
may collaborate rather than will collaborate, because we have in the past tried to collaborate on different things, and it's not always, we don't always get the response we would hope. So
we'll attempt.
we'll attempt to, that would work, yeah.
That's not legal?
No.
None of this is legal. This is all scope of work as to what you want to pay.
It's okay to say,
Okay, that's what I was.
There.
It's not legal.
I don't always speak lawyers.
But when you do,
Womp, womp, womp.
we'll attempt
We'll attempt.
to
Okay.
collaborate.
Thank you.
Okay,
Was that the one?
The other ones in Exhibit B changed, which included extraordinary activities and hours. Those have already been,
so this that we have has been changed.
yes.
Where are you?
Okay,
And then everything else is what we started with, to my understanding.
okay, changed.
There was one spot, and we're trying to find it in our original copies, where it talked about making contact with business owners, and it needed to say business owners and property owners. Because sometimes what needs to be discussed with the business owner.
Sure.
And then other times it's things that need to be discussed with the property owners. Your building's falling down, those are two tough. So
Notice.
we're trying to find where it was. And again, it's just
Okay, I think
a typo thing.
open to that. If you
Yeah.
just Mail it to us when you find it. Okay, so Exhibit B, the matrix, Juanita said they made those few corrections that you wanted, so we're
Yes.
okay there. We've already discussed Exhibit C, compensation, and made some changes to that.
Correct.
So now we're at insurance,
Now that is legal.
and we're okay with that.
Yes, ma'am. Insurance was there.
Primary coverage, no, this is with everything under insurance, which is what all this is, through page 39 of the packet, 3 of 3.
It's all good. All
Oh,
done.
this is,
That's it.
Okay.
That's all.
It's
Yay.
The property owners is scope of work and
oh,
it's in your
it's in our revisions, okay.
revisions.
Yeah, like I said, it was just one of those little things.
Page, Counselor.
On theirs, it's page,
I'll give it ours.
ours would be, scope of work would be 31. And
This is different rates.
district, downtown district. Downtown district business owners
What line?
or property. That would be 7 or 8. It's actually 8, sorry. It's the downtown district business owners
Or
or
proper.
property owners.
Got it. Okay.
All right, so, yes,
I need to know, because I was out of the room.
you want us
What
to
was-
start all over?
No, I do. Wash your mouth. Wash your mouth out. I need to know where the conversation ended with the covenant set forth in this section.
Say that again, the what?
Letter E under Ross Commercial Festival.
Okay.
That was the non-negotiable.
Page 23.
Okay.
Oh, E,
I think we
We leave it
We're
in.
gonna leave it in.
Yeah.
maybe not 100%, but we're.
All right.
Okay.
Someone want to make a motion? Oh, wait, hold on.
Make a motion.
All right. Does Main Street agree that we're to a point to make these changes, get it back to you if all is good with you, and we can go ahead and take it to council next month?
I would recommend taking it to council for February 10th. Due to just we'll be 9 months out as of the end of February. And it does not like us to carry these agreements without having them corrected that long anyway. But so if we can, we will just be hopeful that get all these changes updated and we find that both parties are all in agreement with exactly where we're at. I think we're close enough. I think we can walk through.
That's what I'm.
And then, so I would ask, make the motion very simple to move forward with the amendments as discussed. If we want to go back and listen to the video or something, we will, but if we need clarification, we'll just.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you all being so interested and involved in what is happening on Main Street. It's a great asset to the city. So thank you all for working with us through this. So if we could now have a motion, please.
Motion for a group hug.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we send the full council for this February meeting, the recommendation to approve the get back to the professional service agreement between the city of Roswell and Main Street Roswell
To include
the changes that were discussed today.
Okay. What? Did you second your own
No,
motion?
I second it.
Oh.
I will say,
We sound alike, I know.
Yeah, you must.
I have some Scribners, but I am not gonna go through them right now. I'll call you. And we'll go through.
Thank you again. So
We need
you'll
to
get a
vote.
copy, obviously, before it hits the agenda, and we'll
Need to
go
vote.
from there. Thank you all. We need a vote. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I'll have one after.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Mr. Knapp.
Madam Chair, councilors, we were informed as of 2:45 today that our contractor that was doing the Great Blocks project, construction documents and everything has completed and hit 100% completion.
Ooh, that's
It
exciting.
will be placed on the city council agenda as a presentation on the February 10th.
Wonderful.
Just, we might try to get it on finance to at least get a little bit of thing, but
Sure,
that's been a.
Ongoing.
it has been. Yes. Oh, that's kind of exciting.
Is deadline the 22nd for the next application? Is that correct?
I believe so. I believe I believe those are all there. The nice thing is that while we were here at Main Street and New Mexico, was that there's a potential of additional funding because.
Oh, the complete.
Money out there, so
Yay.
it's hopeful if whether we can do Great Blocks in one phase or two, we're not assured yet, but I would assume that if we can make this the agreement onto the February 5th, Main Street, of course, is invited to be at the February 5th meeting as well for the Great Blocks.
Perfect. That's wonderful. That's good news. Thank you for sharing. Good, good, good. Okay. We're going to move on. If anyone wants to leave us.
Now, y'all don't want to stay? Come on. Cynthia, come on. I know y'all are not busy at all.
She has things to work on tonight.
I'm going to go stop and buy a bottle of wine on the way home.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Okay, let's move on to our addendum items. The first one, I don't want to break. You don't want to break?
No.
Okay.
Just for your record.
The item 5 on our approved agenda is the Air Service Development Consulting Services consideration with Mead and Hunt. Oh, hello, Scott.
Tennis place.
Is the seat warm?
No, but it's been vacant for a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
So what we have here is a result of an RFP that we did back during the summer. It was RFP 21006 for our air service development. And we can hit the next slide. I'm sorry. No worries. We're all doing our things. And we did go through that RFP. We did award to Mead and Hunt. And I'll be totally honest and say that I think it was kind of a misunderstanding of the procurement process. We didn't think about the $60,000 as not being approved when you guys approved the award.
Okay.
All we're really doing is going back and ratifying that contract as being able to go over $60,000 because we're approaching that amount now. So we need to increase our PO is really what it comes down to, and it will go over 60. And so with that, all that's up on the board. Any questions? I'll answer anything you got.
Cut and dry.
Cut and dry.
Any questions for Scott? Or anyone else? Oh, is that Steve has one? No. Chris. Yeah, blame it. All right. I think we all know what we're talking about here. This would need to go to full council. Probably better not consent, huh? It'll get pulled off. Okay. So let's not do consent. Let's take full council. Can I have a?
Consent?
Well,
It's $65,000.
I know.
5,000.
You may make a motion.
Make a motion, Mr. Foster.
All right. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to place on consent considering recommending authorization for an expenditure of $65,390 for air service development consulting services. Well, that's it, to Mead and Hunt.
None. Okay. Is there a second? Okay. Any more questions, concerns, statements, anything? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thanks for staying with us.
It was fun.
It's fun. It's all in the eyes.
Oh, we're almost done.
Okay, we have one more item, and that is an ordinance that amends Article 52 of the zoning ordinance. Thanks for sitting with us.
Well, he needed to, because he's going to be that other part of it anyway.
See what you got yourself into. Okay,
Now he's going to run. Oh,
Hey, don't tell him.
okay, I'm sorry. This is an ordinance creating a new section in the building and performance standards.
Madam Chair and committee members, we received this request last Friday. In fact, if Mr. Patterson is still online, I see his smiling face up there. He can help with the presentation if he chooses to do so. But the request to review this particular section of our zoning and development code was received last Friday evening. It was handed off. It was received by the city attorney. It was handed off to me on Monday, and I went through and quickly reviewed those sections that I felt were in need of updating in order to meet the request that was made to us. What you have before you is a very down and dirty amendment to 4 different sections. You want to go ahead and flip the slide, next slide. Go ahead. Right there, that's good. You'll see that there are 4 different sections that we were asked to take a look at. The possibility of blending the existing requirements for the C3 and C4 zone with the design and development requirements for the MRA, the Downtown Railroad District redevelopment area. So we looked at exceptions to height requirements in section 6. Section 7, we also added some language to section 7F, minimum standards for the number of off-street parking and also for loading zones. And then also section 11 within Article 52. So you should have a copy, or you should have received a copy of those sections, which are completely laid out. for you to take a look at. The only changes that are being recommended right now are those that are underlined in the attached documents. Okay, so they're actually, total amount of words being changed is relatively few. And they are just additions to improve the ability to look at projects comprehensively and consistently across both the C3 zone as well as those portions of the MRA that butt up against the C3 zone. Other than that, staff is here for any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff or anyone else?
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Couple of questions. I'm just trying to understand why we're using the word adopted, except within, like on line 26 of page 1, except within the C3 and C4 zoning districts and those properties located within the adopted railroad district. Since it's adopted, isn't it the Railroad District Metropolitan Development Area Plan, MRA? I know that sounds like just semantics. I'm just trying to understand why that word is necessary.
We do need to tie it back. The MRA is not a zoning document. The MRA is a planning document. The MRA outlines a specific area.
But it has already been adopted.
But it has already been adopted, yes.
So so that's why
Could I recommend that we maybe name check the resolution? Because as I recall, the MRA is created by a resolution. So if it may be a good idea to say the MRA as established in resolution, blah, 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 dash, blah, blah, and then it makes clear what we're talking about. Because as Kevin mentions, the MRA is not created in the zoning ordinance. And so we're just kind of dropping it in there without further explanation.
Okay. That helps me.
Okay.
That helps me. Yeah, if that can be.
Good idea.
Be done.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I will
Yes.
say that I did receive a phone call from the EDC director. He was unable to be here today to speak, but did want me to share with me that they are highly interested in seeing something to this effect happen to be able to better allow those places to be able to find a way of operation. I think we all agree that within the MRA, a vast majority of those areas, in order for them to come up to that standard, have to tear half their building down or, a good portion to ever make that happen. So that did come. I did have another phone call, so I had a question that I wanted to bring on that behalf. Where is our closest city parking lots to the MRA?
The MRA is a fairly big.
It's a large area, and I recognize that. And I know, you've got the MRA is over near the county courthouse parking lot, but then there's other areas as well.
Probably be the city water maintenance area where we have parking lots, but it's not a city. I mean, it's not a parking lot per se. It's parking, but that would be because we don't have any city parking lots. And well, we have
We have a number of city parking lots, but the intent of allowing the parking flexibility in the C3 zone is not just to encourage utilization of city parking, but it's also to encourage utilization of on-street parking. It's to have property owners get together for shared parking agreements and other things like that. The idea is that behind all of this is to encourage additional parking concepts and ideas rather than the traditional and very static way of calculating parking that we've always done in the past. It is something that is continuing nationwide, though. It is an issue you're seeing it continue to morph and change. The way we do business is morphing and changing. A lot more people are now, they're reducing total number of parking spaces, but encouraging buy online and pick up your shopping and deliveries and all kinds. There's 100 different new ways of doing shopping, and not all of them require parking. So we're encouraging that flexibility in the thought and the ideas.
now the Liberty falls outside the MRA, right? It's not.
Well, wait a minute.
Liberty is downtown. It's technically downtown.
So because that parking is city parking. But when I'm looking at the MRA, it looks like most of it is industrial 1. Okay. So,
The other thing is the great blocks that Joe just mentioned, I'm pretty sure is that in the MRA or is it close?
That is the very southern end of the MRA, yes.
So that's an area that I know many have talked about needing, parking there too. So that would add some, that would be close to the downtown area, which would be.
And there have been, from what I understand, ongoing discussions with a number of the other property owners
Yes.
in the MRA about the possibility of adding additional off-street parking or working out some kind of an agreement with the city for shared parking, public parking. So it's a concept that's in motion. This is just adding a little more teeth to it.
Go ahead though.
No,
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 you
no,
finish. You finish.
No, okay, Madam Chair, yeah, I'm definitely a proponent of something like this because I recognize if we're going to ever see that MRA develop to what we envision, we're going to have to make changes to allow that to happen, or people are not going to be able to build or to take these what we would call historic or older buildings and make it into what it's going to be. My question would be then, though, by making these changes, this does not give any other lenience to what's currently 2C3 and C4, correct?
I'm sorry?
I need to ensure that any of these changes does not give any extra lenience to the C3, C4 parking.
No, all we're doing is adding the language about the MRA. All right, we're just adding that as a additional area that would be covered by some of these exceptions.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a question, if I may. This change, the city code, is specific to the railroad district metropolitan redevelopment area. And my thought is that a city could have another MRA somewhere else if we were to choose to do so.
Yes.
Because it doesn't have to be tied to the railroad or anything. So I'm just wondering if, and this is just a question, I'd be okay either way, if we would drop the specificity of the railroad district MRA just for future plans, or if we don't.
I don't think we can do that. We'd need to amend it again and add an additional.
Okay.
And if any future redevelopment areas that may be adopted should in fact include their own set of zoning and development codes anyway.
Okay.
So we shouldn't need to do this. And when if we go back and revisit the MRA, because we do need to revisit
Right.
design and development requirements for the MRA as well as downtown. What you'll probably find is that a lot of the issues that we're putting these stopgap measures in place right now are going to kind of go away as we look at things in a more comprehensive manner.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other comments or questions or anything?
You ready for a motion?
I'm ready.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we send to full council the recommendation to advertise in the February meeting this ordinance to amend certain sections of Article 52, Building and Performance Standards of the zoning ordinance of the city of Roswell, with the verbiage consideration that legal will come up with.
On the specific
On
to
the
that,
specificity,
section
yes.
6.
Yes.
Okay. Second. Okay, second.
You can. No, I'm good.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of taking this to full city council in February, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. No opposition, so this will go to council in February as to advertise a public hearing. Is there anything else to come before the legal committee? Any public people? Okay, hearing none. Thank you all for your participation. This was an interesting meeting to get through, but we got through it. So we're adjourned at 6:09. Thank you all. Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way.
Fine.
Seriously?
Here's mine. Have we stopped the recording?
Not, it hasn't been stopped yet.
Oh, I didn't hear from Rita because I didn't do public participation, right? I've already heard. And she